Hey guys! This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Raised by the Third Raikage. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start! Chapter 7: Becoming Genin and Border Patrol. 6 years later, a black blur sped through the streets of Kumogakure heading for the Ninja Academy. Once the academy was in sight, the blur slowed down to show a tall, muscular blonde kid. En had changed a lot over the years. Thanks to his father and brother's training, he was very strong. The past 6 years had been grueling on En, but in the end it was worth it. Like Kyuubi had said, with his Crimson Lightning he had very high control over the element. He was so far in his training that his father and older brother had taught him their famous lightning release armor. While he was nowhere near his father's and brother's speed, strength, and skill, it didn't mean he wasn't strong. Without his armor and with his weights on, he was still at least Chunin level in speed, and without his weights and lightning armor he was around Jounin speed, which was something he took great pride in. Another thing he took pride in was his skill in kenjutsu. He and B had done the impossible and had made their own kenjutsu style where they used 7 swords located on various body parts, and when they used all their swords few could keep up with their speed and unpredictably. And couldn't help but chuckle when he and B had shown their new kenjutsu style. He had looked like they had fallen from the sky. His skill in ninjutsu was off the charts thanks to his family, and the scrolls he found in the Jinchuuriki cave. His genjutsu skill was still suckish, but thanks to being friends with the Kyuubi he could get out of genjutsu easily enough by having Kyuubi disrupt his chakra. Another major thing that had happened that only 2 other people and 3 Bju knew about was his training in Kyuubi's chakra. Right now he could go up 2-3 tails without losing control. Thanks to B and Yujito, he didn't have to worry about attacking anyone since the cave was off from the village, and the cave helped hide the chakra, making it near impossible unless you were a highly skilled sensor to notice it, and if either of the Jinchuuriki did get out of control, then the other 2 would calm them down. As he walked to the classroom, he stopped in front of a mirror and looked at himself over. And was 5 feet 2 inches, a little on the tall side for boys his age. His bright blonde hair was short and spiked upwards. He had a muscular build thanks to his physical training with A and his father. Although he was only 12, you could still see the muscles under his shirt, and wore a white jacket with red lightning moving around the jacket and a hoodie on the back. He wore black shinobi pants and red ninja sandals. Around his neck were a pair of shades not unlike his brother's, but instead of them being brown they were crimson. He had 7 swords sheathed on his back with their red hilts sticking out like anime /. On his arms he had 2 gold metal wrist guards not unlike his older brother A. A white Kumo forehead protector was worn proudly on his forehead. If you're done preening yourself you should get to class so you can get your Genin team and sensei. A familiar voice spoke in his head. Hey, you excited? And asked his Bju. I should be the one asking this to you. You have been waiting for this for a while. Kyuubi told him. Yeah, I know, I'm so pumped now, I hope I just don't have a team that I'll get dumped. And rapped in his head. A sigh could be heard in his head. What does that even mean, Kit? Kyuubi asked him, and looked down. What if I get a team and sensei how only see me as the demon brat? And asked in a worried voice. Don't worry, Kit, I don't think your father would do that, and even if that does happen there isn't that much they can do since you're already at Chunin level even if you only graduated yesterday. Kyuubi told him, and grinned. Yeah, you're right, Q, I shouldn't have to worry about stuff like that. During the time En had been talking to Kyuubi he had arrived at his classroom. And stepped inside the room and went over to the back right corner of the room where 4 other people were sitting and just talking. With his normal goofy smile in place he walked up to them. Hey yo, what's up, you know? He asked using hand signs to help his rap look cooler. The 4 people just sighed at their friend's greeting. There were 3 girls and 1 boy. One was a girl with pale skin and light blonde hair. Even though she was only 12 she already had borderline B-sized breasts, which had caught the attention of many of the guys in the class. She wore a black V-neck t-shirt that showed off some of her breasts, and had a tanto on her back. Her name was Samui. The second girl was a redhead with dark skin. She had amber eyes and gold earrings. Her name was Karui, whose dad was Araji, who had supplied N and B with their swords. She wore a white jacket with a hoodie in the back with dark shinobi pants, and had a sword on her back. She wore a white forehead protector like a bandana. The third girl was someone who N could never help but blush whenever he saw her. She was fair-skinned and had platinum blonde hair and a ponytail tied with bandages. She wore a tight purple blouse with black pants and a katana on her back. While her breasts were not as large as Samui's, they were at least a nearing B. Her eyes were sky blue with a cat-like pupil. Her name was Yujito, a fellow Jinchuuriki. The boy was dark-skinned like Carrie with pure white hair that spiked up much like ends. He was sucking on a lollipop with a thoughtful expression on his face as though he was thinking deeply on something. He had a black forehead protector on his forehead. He wore a black jacket with a hoodie on the back and black shinobi pants, and had a sword on his back. His name was Oma. And why do you always have to use your rap? Asked an irritated Carrie. Ah, come on Carrie, why do you have to be so mean, and pouted. Well, maybe if you stopped rapping whenever you greet us she wouldn't have to be mean, Yujito suggested, and just sat in the chair mumbling about people who didn't appreciate his rap. So guys, who do you think we will have as teammates? Samui asked them, and got in a thinking pose. Well, I'm guessing you and Omo will be on a team since your families are always on the same team. As for me, I will probably have Yujito-chan on my team. What about senseis? Karui asked him since he was the son of the Raikage, and would probably know more than them. I don't know. If I could I would want one of my big bros teammates C or Darui. And told them before he started to grin. I think B is going to get a team this year, he informed them. Omo perked up at this. Really? That's awesome. B is one of the best jounin in Kumo and is one of our best kenjutsu users thanks to his skill with his 7 blades. Hey, I can do it too, I just haven't used it in a fight yet. And complained. In the past 6 years B had risen through the ranks fast. He made Chunin at 12 and Jounin at 15. He had been asked to join Storm a year ago, but he said he wanted to become a sensei first. Although there hadn't been much of a change in behavior from the villagers regarding the Jinchuuriki, but some of the shinobi had gained an amount of respect for B thanks to his skill. While it didn't change much with the villagers, it gave the boys hope that they could become respected. Yujito sighed. I just hope whoever his team is he won't rap, otherwise it would be nearly impossible to understand what he is saying. And glared at her even though there was no hostility in his eyes. Hey, rap is fine, if you have a problem get in the back of the line, he rapped, making his friends sigh again at his speech. And couldn't help but fume since no one really liked rap besides him and his big brother. But on the inside he couldn't help but smile at his friends. When he began the academy he and Yujito had been nervous of how they would be accepted, since all the kids knew they were Jinchuuriki, and if they would have any friends besides each other. In the beginning it seemed like that since most didn't want to be with the demon kids. But they had gotten lucky. Omo's father was very close to En's father and as such didn't think of En, Yujito, or be as monsters, something he had told his clan repeatedly. They were one of the few clans that didn't hate the trio of Jinchuuriki. Samui didn't see anything that screamed demon at her, and after talking to both En and Yujito, and saw Yujito's kind attitude along with En's goofy one, she too had become fast friends with the 2 blonde Jinchuurik. Karui didn't fear or hate En or Yujito because her father Ariji had told her that she shouldn't listen to what the villagers or anyone else say about the trio and to be friends with them, and after meeting them she became fast friends with them. B.A. and Raisin had been happy that they had found friends their own age. B had often helped the kids with training whenever he was off of missions with his team, which consisted of a teen named Atsui who was Samui's older brother, and like his sister didn't see anything that yelled demon at B and had become best friends with him. And Mabui, who thought the same as Atsui, and had often teased B that he had a crush on her, and seeing him turn red he knew it was true. That is true since it is hard to understand what the 2 of you are saying sometimes, En, Karui said. Before En could reply, probably in rap just to annoy her, their homeroom teacher walked in with a clipboard. Alright, shut up and sit down. The instructor yelled and waited for the kids to shut up. Today is the day you will begin your careers as a ninja of Kumo. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you getting this far. From now on we are no longer sensei and student but brothers in arms. Now I will call off the names of your teammates and sensei, the instructor said before listing off the names. After listening for around 5 minutes En started to doze off but straightened up when he heard teammate will consist of Omoi, Karui, and Samui. Your sensei is Karabi, 1 Yatsuki. En gave said people a thumbs up. The 3 genin looked happy to get B as a sensei. The instructor continued on with his listing. Team 9 will consist of Yujito ni, and Yatsuki, and Ko Abuyoki. Your sensei is Darui. En smiled at Yujito, who smiled back before he looked around for Ko. His smile faded a little when he found Ko. Ko was 5 feet 0 inches with brown spiky hair and deep green eyes. He wore dark red umbu armor with a black shirt and pants underneath. His clan was made up of most of the village's assassins and hunternin. While Ko didn't outright hate En and Yujito, he didn't like them since most of the villagers and shinobi had said they were Jinchuuriki and how they were demons. Although En was happy that he got one of the lesser haters, since Ko never joined in on the other people's taunting. En knew it would take some convincing for him to accept them as people, and just hoped they could become friends with Ko, and turned back his attention to the instructor who had finished up the listing and was now rolling up the scroll. You will now wait for your sensei to come and pick you up. Serve your country well," he said before leaving the room. The next few minutes different senseis came and took their teams to their training fields. Soon only Team 8 and 9 were left. Where is B-sensei?" Karui complained. "What if he was attacked on his way here and gets injured and has to go to the hospital where he will be unable to train us, and we will die on our first mission outside the village?" Omo exclaimed before Karui hit him on the head. "Be quiet, Omobaka, no one wants to hear your theories," Karui said. Knowing Big Bro, he is probably planning his entrance, and how he is going to rap, and said with a smile. Before anyone could respond to N, the door slammed open, revealing a giant man with sunglasses sauntering in with a smile in place, as always. B had changed a lot over the last 6 years. He was as tall as A, and had the same build as him. He still wore his brown sunglasses. His whitish blonde hair was in his braids and combed back with his height placed like a bandana and a goatee. He also had a blue tattoo of a bull's horn on his left cheek, which in N's opinion was pretty badass. He didn't wear a shirt, only a white Kumo Jounin jacket, and you could see where the iron armor seal was located on his shoulder. He also had 7 swords with red hilts sheathed like N. He also had a long, red rope belt tied around his waist, the standard Kumo hand and shin guards, shinobi sandals, and a white scarf around his neck. Slash like anime, but he looks younger. Slash. Yo yo yo! What's up, Team 8? When I'm done with y'all gonna be great. B rapped. Yo big bro. And greeted his brother, moving his fist in front of him for a fist bump, which B happily returned. Yo lil 9 is see you got Dari as a sensei, that's pretty cool ya fool. B said, and gained a tick mark. I'm not a fool ya fool, you are fool. Ya fool, shut up big bro. Yujito sighed as she watched the two brothers bicker among themselves like children. Can B really be an elite jounin? Not to mention N is strong too, but sometimes they act like children, Yujito thought to herself. I don't say that, kitten, you know how those two are, why fight what you can't change? A familiar mature female voice spoke in her head. Oh hey Nibby, Yujito thought to her. So kitten, excited to be on the same team as your boyfriend? Nibby asked her. Yujito blushed at Nibby's words but managed to hide it before anyone asked why she was blushing. Nibby. For the last time, Enkun is not my boyfriend, she said. Nibby started to giggle. Whatever you say, kitten. I'm just saying, look at how cute he is. When he gets older he will be a hunk. You should tell him you want to talk to him outside, and once you pass a closet push him inside so you can ride his dash. Nibby, Yujito yelled, mentally failing to suppress the blush at her perverted demon's words. It was so unfair. Why out of all the 9 did she get the most perverted? I'm offended, kitten, that you would even suspect me of being a pervert, Nibby said in mock hurt. You are one. While this was going on, N noticed Yujito's blush and stepped forward until he was right in front of her with their noses nearly touching, and put his hand on her forehead. Are you okay, Yujito-chan? You're really red, but you don't have a fever, so why are you red? He asked, confused, not getting why Yujito got even more red when he touched her and didn't notice they were so close their noses were almost touching. Yes, I'm fine, Enkun, Yujito said, trying to lessen her blush. We watched the two other Jinchuuriki act around each other with a grin. Yeah, Lil Miss 2 got the hots for Lil 9. But he doesn't know what is going on. Love can be so cruel, be thought in bad rap. When will you stop that garbage you call rap? Hachibi moaned from his mindscape. Hachibi had started to seriously regret setting up a mental contact with B. How was he supposed to know he even rapped in his thoughts? Ah, come on Hachi, I gotta be me, you see. B rapped back. Hachibi banged his head against the cage. Why couldn't your father have sealed me inside a non-rapping human? Hachibi complained. Ah, don't be so mean, Hachibi said to his Bju. Over the past 6 years, B had gotten farther ahead in using his Bju's chakra than N and Yujito. He mastered the 4-tailed state and was starting to do the 5-tailed state. It had taken a lot of work to not go in a version 2, since no one could be able to stop him if he lost control, and had wanted to get farther in using his Bju chakra too, but had decided not to since he was younger than B and didn't have as much control. Alright Team B. We gonna go to training field 8, you see. So let's go. Oh yeah. We. B yelled before jumping out the window, soon followed by his new students, albeit they decided to use the door than the window, and just shook his head in amusement at his brothers parting before turning back to the door, where a fairly tall dark-skinned man walked in. Darui had white shaggy hair, which covered his left eye, and wore a high-collared, sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on the wrists, and a white one-strap Kumo flak jacket. He seemed to have a lazy look to him. Alright, you guys are Team 9? Hopefully this won't be dull, Dari told them. Come to training field 9, and with that he left. Yujito and N looked at each other before nodding and headed out of the door with Ko behind them to training field 9, where Darui was waiting for them. Hey Darui, what's up? and asked him. Darui smiled at the exuberant Jinchuuriki. I'm doing fine. N. Darui was A's teammate along with C, who learned under N's father the Raikage. He had the storm release Kikei Genkai and was able to use black lightning like the Raikage. Both him and C didn't see the trio of Jinchuuriki as monsters thanks to being teammates with their older brother and taught by their father. Everyone in Kumo knew how protective A was of his little brothers. If anyone called his little brothers demon, or anything of the like in front of him, well, let's just say the last guy who did is still in a hospital eating food through a straw. Darui and C had helped A and the Raikage train B and N and had come to see them as little brothers. Darui had taken great interest in N's crimson lightning since he too had a different type of lightning, and had been impressed to see that his lightning was equal, or greater than his black lightning if he mastered it. C had also taken an interest in N, Yujito and B since both had the skill to be sensors. Although C didn't know that was ability given by their Bju, and seemed to have the best range so far, which had a range of 2 km/1.24274 mi. With Yujito it was 1.5 km, and B at 1 km, which N and Yujito liked to tease him that he had the lowest range of them, much to B's irritation. As the newly formed Team 9 gathered around their sensei, Darui spoke again. Okay, let's begin introductions. I'll go first. My name is Darui. My likes are onigiri, training, and my friends. My dislikes are people who think of people as monsters. He glanced at N and Yujito. And sour food. My hobbies are kenjutsu and training. My dreams for the future are to continue serving the Raikage and Kumo, and to make you guys some of the most powerful ninja Kumo has ever had. He glanced over at Yujito. Alright, you go, Yujito. Yujito smiled. My name is Yujito Ni. My likes are my friends, the color purple, sushi, and training. My dislikes are people who see Enkun, B, and I as demons, people who try to hurt my friends, and the time it takes to make sushi. My hobbies are training, reading, and spending time with my friends. My dream for the future is to become a powerful protector of Kumo and to prove to the people of Kumo that I am not a demon. Darui nodded and turned to N. Alright, you next, N. And grinned. My name is N Yatsuki. My likes are my big brothers and my pops the Raikage. Yujito-chan, he said, looking at Darui, and hence did not see Yujito blush. I also like ramen and rap. I dislike people who see Yujito-chan, BNI, or I as monsters, the 3 minutes it takes to make ramen, and people who dislike my rap. My hobbies are training, making new raps with my big brother B, and pranks. My dreams for the future is to become a powerful protector of Kumo, to master my dad and big bro's lightning release armor, to become a successful rapper, and to become Raikage. Darui turned to Ko, and last but not least Ko. Ko glanced around before shrugging. My name is Ko Abayoki. My likes are my family, friends, and training. I dislike people who threaten my family. My hobbies are spending time with my family and friends. My dream for the future is to become a respectable clan head. Ko said, Alright, tomorrow we will start doing missions. You three are the best of the class and I have high hopes for you guys. We will meet here again at 8 to do training. Now you can go home. I look forward to teaching you. Right now I have to report to the Raikage about our team. Darui told them before walking off, and nudged Yujito to follow him as they got up to leave before calling over his shoulder. Hey Komi and Yujito-chan are gonna get something to eat to celebrate becoming ninja with some of our friends. You wanna come? It'd do good for us to get to know each other. And offered. No thanks, and Sanko said bluntly and walked away. Yujito sighed. I guess he is one of the haters, she said in a quiet voice. Don't worry, Yujito-chan will get him to open up to us. Remember, we thought of this before we started the academy, and we got Omoe, Karui, and Samui to not see us as monsters. What's not to say about Ko? We just got to be patient, and said optimistically before grabbing her hand and started to drag her toward their favorite place to eat, once again not noticing the blush on Yujito's face. They soon arrived at a small shop located in one of the many mountains of Kumo. The inside of the cave had a homely feeling, and En and Yujito could smell food cooking, making their mouths water. Inside, the newly formed Team B sat at a booth where B was trying to convince them that rapping was so much cooler than normal talking. I'm just saying, yo, rapping is definitely the way to go. Rap is the greatest of arts, and it doesn't need to be dissed by you tarts. B rapped using eccentric hand signs to help prove his point. Shut up, B-sensei. Karui yelled, trying to stop her new sensei from rapping any more than necessary. Ah, come on, Karui, I agree with Big Bro. Rap is defiantly the way to go. And said as he and Yujito joined them at their booth. Yo, Lil 9 and Little Miss 2. What's up, you fools? B greeted. I'm not a fool, you MGH. And said before his mouth was covered by Yujito's hand. Enkun, don't even think of finishing that sentence, because every time this happens you and B do it for over a half hour, and I doubt the others want to hear that. Don't you agree? Yujito said with a smile that pretty much said agree or else. En paled hi Yujito-chan. Karui, Omo, and Samui sighed in relief that N and B weren't going into who was the fool rants, which caused said people to glare at them. So how is it of having Big Bro as a sensei? And asked, trying to change the subject so not to endure the wrath of Yujito. It's cool though, like we said earlier at the academy, it can be hard to understand what he is saying. Samui said, I'm hurt what with you saying that in a school, why do my students have to be so cruel? B cried. Yujito sent Team B a sympathetic look. Don't worry, you'll learn to understand him like I do since I'm around him and Enkuen so much. Yujito paused before going pale. Although I don't think that's good if I can understand them. N and B both had anime tears, mumbling about people hating their art, much to the amusement of the newly made Genin. As N and B were still brooding, a small old lady walked wearing a green apron and a wooden spoon in her hand over to their table. She had a kind face with wrinkles and gray hair tied in a ponytail. Hello, it's nice to see you guys again, she said with a smile. Hey Granny Kicho. And greeted with a raised hand before he was whacked on the head with Kicho's wooden spoon. And what did I saw about calling me old? Kicho said with a small glare while brandishing her spoon, which caused En to shrink back in his chair in fear of getting whacked again by her spoon. Sorry Kicho. And said nervously. Kicho just shook her head in amusement. I'm guessing you'll have what you three always have, a couple plates of fired beef, 10 bowls of ramen, and 5 plates of sushi? She asked B, N, and Yujito, who all nodded eagerly. Kicho was another of the few people in Kumo who didn't hold any hate for the Jinchuuriki trio. She didn't see anything that said demon to them. It also helped that the trio ate with the appetite of a small army, so she was getting good business from them. She liked B and N's goofy attitude and Yujito's kind attitude. She saw them as grandchildren, and in turn they saw her as a grandmother figure. Alright, what will you other three have? She asked Karui, Samui, and Omo. I'll have the roasted duck. But what if I overeat, and I find out there is a deadly disease going on that is in ducks, where I then have to go to the hospital, and a pretty nurse will see that I only have a few days to live and is heartbroken and swears to never love again. Omo said to himself before he was bonked on the head by Karui. Be quiet, Omobaka, you overthink things, Karui said. She turned to Kicho. The baka will have the roasted duck and I'll have the tuna. Samui pursed through the menu. I'll have some onigiri. Kicho nodded and went to make their food. There was a comfortable silence before Omu noticed something. Hey, and Yujito, where is Ko and Darui? I thought we agreed for both of our teams to be here, Omu said. Darui-sensei had to go report in our team to the Raikage. Though now that I think about it, why are you here, B? Shouldn't you be at your dad's office reporting in your team? Yujito asked B. Oh, forgot about that, he. I'll report into Pops later, B said, making the Genin face vault at his words except for N, who was laughing. Haha man bro, dad's gonna be pissed at you if you don't report, and since he can't leave the office until all the Jounin report in their teams. N said, still laughing. B waved away N's warning, I'll be fine, Pops won't care. At which N snorted, since knowing his father he will most likely punish B by whopping his ass in their next training session, which N and A will happily watch. Yeah, well, back to your question, Omo. Yadari-sensei went to go report to Dad. We told Ko about our teams meeting each other, but he didn't want to. And said, looking down. I'm not really surprised he is one of the haters. Yujito sighed. Omoy, Karui, and Samui saw the sad looks on their faces and immediately got concerned for their friends, while B had an unreadable expression on his face, since he experienced the same thing when he went to the academy, where he only had Atsui and Mabui and had luckily gotten on a team with them. Don't worry, and I know you and Yujito will get to him. He'll see you for who you truly are, a good friend in person. Samui encouraged, where both Omoy and Karui nodded at her words. N and Yujito smiled at their friend's words. Thanks, Samui, I bet we will. We just have to be patient, and soon we'll get to him, though I think we should stop talking about such things though, since we're kinda being a buzzkill. And said, where all the people minus B sighed at N's rap, but we're glad to see him get out of his funk. That's a pretty good rhyme, Lil 9. B said, and grinned at his big brother. I know it, cause I'm awesome. I don't get why people think rapping is so bothersome. B nodded at his little brother's rap before taking out a notebook where he kept all his rhymes. That's a good one, lil bro, which N nodded and took out his own notebook that B had given him. And soon the two rapping brothers were making up new raps and writing them down in their notebooks for future references. The new Genin could only smile at the two brothers rapping. The mood for the rest of the night was considerably lighter, as they talked about stuff they were learning and laughed at N's pranks on his older brother A and their father. All in all, it was a good night. 1 week later. Come on, Pops, I don't want to go on another D-rank. I'm too awesome to do these chores. And complained to his father, who sighed at his youngest son's complaining. Over the past week, Team Darui had done the bane of all missions, D-rank. They had been training hard, and Darui had tried to teach the team teamwork, but it had only half worked. En and Yujito's teamwork was flawless. They each covered each other's weaknesses, with North the best at close combat, and Yujito providing support, but still proving to be a deadly enemy in close combat too when En needed backup. It was with Ko that they had trouble with, since he didn't really want anything to do with the two blonde Jinchuuriki. Calm down, boy. Fine, I'll let you go on something other than a D rank, since I know you can hold your own in a fight. The Raikage said, to which En grinned his goofy grin. Raisin looked at the C ranks missions before finding one that would suit the team. Alright, I have a C rank for border patrol. You will be patrolling this small stretch near Kumogakure. Few people enter this place, so there shouldn't be too much of a problem, Rai said, since he wasn't worried about the team's safety, since En and Yujito were at least Chunin strength and Darui was one of his most powerful shinobi. Alright, let's go. En yelled before jumping over his father and smashed through the wall, leaving a decent-sized hole. Raisin's eye twitched as he stood up and walked over to the hole his son had made before yelling out, "And get your ass back in here. Do you know how much paperwork you and make by smashing through walls? Just use the damn door." Darui sighed. Well, at least things aren't as dull as I thought they would be. The rest of Team Darui left to follow their more eccentric team member, though they decided to use the door. Border of Kumo near Kumogakure. Team Darui were tree hopping along the border of Kumo. Both En and Yujito were taking turns sensing for any chakra signatures. So far nothing had happened out of the ordinary. Alright team, let's take a break and eat, Darui said. As the team was eating, Yujito decided to try and start a conversation with Ko. "So Ko, what's your family like?" she asked him. Ko glared at her. "Why should I tell you?" he asked coldly. En glared at him. "She was just asking a question, bro." Ko glared at En. "I don't need to explain myself to you, En-san." En got up and put a hand on one of his swords. "Look dude, I know you don't like us, but we are trying to be nice to you, so stop being a jerk," he said, where Ko put his hand on his tanta located on his back. The two looked about. They were going to come to blows when Darui decided to intervene. "Enough. And you two are teammates, you shouldn't be fighting each other." And Ko, "I know what people say about En, Yujito, and B, but you shouldn't listen to them, they are just lies." Ko just snorted and turned away, and started to walk away. "I'm going to go on, I need to cool my head." And jumped up in the trees and continued on to where they were patrolling. Darui sighed. This is going to be a pain, he thought, within, and continued tree hopping, trying to keep a hold on his anger. "Stupid Ko, why can't people not see us as monsters?" "Don't worry kid, you'll get to him," Kyuubi said in his mind. "Just be patient." "Yeah, you're right. But still it pisses me off. I just don't like it when people are mean to Yujito-chan." "Of course kid, it's perfectly normal to be defensive of your girlfriend." When En heard this, he almost lost his footing and nearly fell out of the tree he landed in. "Nanny, she isn't my girlfriend. You could have fooled me. She is pretty hot, why wouldn't you want to date her?" "Shut up," En yelled in his mind, but he could have sworn he could hear the Kyuubi's laughter in the back of his mind, and started to use his sensor ability to see if anyone had crossed the border, and immediately noticed a chakra signature at least low Chunin level. He started to head in the direction of the source. He stopped on a tree as he spotted the signature. Even though he was high up in the trees, being a Jinchuuriki had given him higher senses and could make out the man through the leaves, and yelled out, "Stop! You are trespassing on Kumo territory. State your business for being here or prepare for an ass whooping." The man stopped before he yelled out, "I'd like to see you try. Come out, you coward. My name is Mizuki, and you don't scare me at all," and dropped down to the ground in front of the person and saw what he looked like. Mizuki had white, slightly bluish hair that reached his shoulders and wore a Konoha Chunin vest. He also took notice of the slashed Konoha forehead protector indicating he was a missing nin, and there was also a rather large scroll placed on his back. The man in front of him scoffed, "You're just a kid. Why don't you go on back to your mama and leave this ninja stuff for the adults, okay?" And glared at the man. "Hey, shut up. I may be a kid, but I can still kick your ass, so don't diss me or I'll break your bones like glass." "What the hell are you saying? Are you an idiot or something?" Mizuki asked. En's eye twitched. "It's called rap." Mizuki smirked. "Well, it sounds like crap," he said smugly. En's eyes narrowed. All of a sudden he was surrounded in his lightning armor charged with 15% of his power, crimson lightning crackling around him, directing all of his ki at the man who had taken a step backward in fear. "You can insult me and try to wound my pride, but there is something that I will never let you insult, and that is my rap," En roared before charging forward. Mizuki only had time to think fast, before he was punched in the chest with En's fist. He flew backwards into a tree where he soon got up. Glancing around, Mizuki got into a defensive taijutsu style and barely had time to block En's leg that had swept downward to his face by using his arms in an X formation. Even then he was pushed backwards from the force with his muscles spazzing slightly from the electricity. En appeared behind Mizuki and kicked him in the side, causing him to skid back several feet by applying chakra to his feet to not cause him to fly back in the trees. En took notice of the large scroll on Mizuki's back. "What is that scroll, yo? I doubt it's just for show." En rapped. Mizuki had to bite back his retort, remembering the last time he insulted this kid's rap before he smirked. "This scroll is an important scroll that I stole from Konoha to give to Orochimaru and prove my loyalty to him. I am going to his base right now." En's eyes widened at the mention of the traitorous Sannin, who was known for his experiments on children and prisoners. "I can't let this guy go. Orochimaru could be in Kumo or Lightning, one, for all I know." En thought. "What scroll is it?" And asked, wondering if he would tell him. Inside him, Kyuubi snorted, "Kid, I doubt anyone would be stupid enough to tell an enemy what sort of important scroll they stole fro dash. It's Konoha's scroll of sealing with some of Konoha's most powerful kenjutsu and techniques," Mizuki said proudly. Silence, and then, "Wow, this guy is dumb as hell." Tohichi gave a mental nod in agreement. "When you told me you worked for Orochimaru, I knew I would have to capture you. And now that I find out that you have a scroll with some of Konoha's most powerful jutsu, I have captured you," and said seriously as he charged up his lightning armor to where it was at 30% of power. It was overkill since he could fight Mizuki with just 15%, but En knew he had to capture this man and wasn't going to take any chances. Mizuki, being the idiot that he is, decided to end this fight once and for all and rushed at En, going on offensive, aiming for a punch at his head. That was mistake. Mizuki's punch seemed to come in slow motion to En since he had been hit by A and his dad faster in their practices. This was nothing. He sidestepped and gave a quick punch to Mizuki, which combined with his raw strength and the strength of his lightning armor caused him to fly backwards. Mizuki struggled to stand since lightning was randomly sparking from his body thanks to En's lightning armor, and could only watch as En gathered crimson lightning in his hand until a glove of crimson lightning covered his hands. "I tuned this down since I need to get you alive for interrogation, but it's gonna hurt like hell. Too bad I don't care you diss the rap, then my lightning is gonna make your head ring like a bell." En rapped before rushing at Mizuki, his arms stretched out in front of him. Mizuki struggled to move but couldn't and could only watch as lightning style, lightning fist, and was punched in the chest, and the world turned black as Mizuki faded into the sweet and not so gentle embrace of unconsciousness. En watched as Mizuki fell unconscious and smirked. "You don't diss the rap, you fool." He looked at the scroll of sealing on Mizuki's back and decided to check and see if it really was the actual scroll. Opening it up, En was greeted with the sight of different types of jutsu and kenjutsu. "I'll be a son of a gun, this is the actual scroll of sealing. Aw yeah, this is defiantly gonna make my mission record look good." First C rank managed to acquire Konoha's famed scroll of sealing with some of Konoha's most powerful techniques, and captured a subordinate of Orochimaru. "Dad's gonna be so proud," En thought with a grin, and then remembered his team and used his sensing ability, and found them about 1.5 kilometers from where he came, meaning he had at least 15 minutes to learn some of the jutsu on the scroll. Pursuing through the scroll, he saw one that caught his eye. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Let's see, allows user to experience whatever the clone experiences, making it good for training or recon. Should only be used for people with large chakra reserves. "Well, I'm a Jinchuuriki, I think I'm fine in that department," and said to himself as he got up and started to try and learn the Shadow Clone Jutsu. This was the scene Team Darui had arrived at. After En had left to cool down, the rest of the team had packed up to catch up to En. When Yujito had sensed En in a fight, they had hurried to now find En surrounded by 10 other Ens, a large open scroll at his feet, a destroyed clearing where it was clear a battle had taken place, and an unconscious man in a Konoha Chunin flak jacket and scratched forehead protector. "En-kun, what happened?" Yujito yelled at En, who had just noticed the arrival of his team, and dispelled his clones. "Oh, saw some sights, took in the nature, and I found this guy trying to sneak into our country, so I told him to leave or be captured, and then the guy had the nerve to insult my rap." And said as though he was deeply offended on what the missing Nin had said. "And you shouldn't have run off like that, what if you got hurt?" Darui reprimanded his student. "Well, I needed to blow off some steam, and this guy sure helped for that." "And guess who this guy is?" And said. "Who?" Yujito asked. "This guy is a subordinate of Orochimaru," and said simply, causing the two Genin and Jounin tense up at the mention of the S-rank missing Nin. "Are you sure, En?" Darui asked him seriously. "Yeah, the guy proudly stated he worked for the creep. And get this, you see this scroll?" And asked as he picked up the large scroll and rolled it up. "Guess what this scroll is?" And asked. "What is it?" Yujito asked impatiently since she was getting tired of En's games, and started to pick his fingernails. "Oh, just Konoha's famous scroll of sealing that has almost all of their most powerful techniques and kenjutsu." and said offhandedly but was grinning on the inside at his team's expressions. Yujito's eyes had reached the size of dinner plates and her mouth was hanging open. The normally impassive Ko eyes reached the same size as Yujito's though his mouth remained closed, whilst Darui simply raised an eyebrow but you could still see the shock in his visible eye. "It's what?" Yujito yelled in disbelief, to which En nodded and grinned. "Yeah, and it's not a fake, I just got a new jutsu from it, and it's S rank so this thing is the real deal." En said. "Let me see." Darui said wherein handed him the scroll and he too saw all the jutsu listed on the scroll. Darui glanced up at his student in awe. "And do you know what Kumo could do with this scroll? We have some of Konoha's most powerful jutsu in our hands." "Great job, kid," he praised wherein rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Continue, I do love being praised," and said. Ko looked at him before saying good job, and started to continue on the route for the rest of the patrol. And noticed that as he said that his lip twitched upward for a second in a small smile before going back in its impassive expression. If En hadn't been looking he wouldn't have noticed it. And glanced at his fellow Jinchuuriki. "Did he just?" Yujito just nodded. "Yeah, he did." En's smile got even bigger. "We're getting to him." And with that said he took the scroll of sealing and put it on his back where Darui grabbed the unconscious Mizuki and followed Ko. The rest of the patrol was uneventful and soon enough they had reached the familiar gates of Kumogakure. As they walked up to the Raikage Tower and saw some of the people look curiously at the still unconscious Mizuki, he also noticed the same old cold glares from the villagers aimed at him and Yujito. He sighed. Why does this have to be so hard? He tried to ignore the whispers behind his back. He noticed Yujito could hear them too and nudged her with his arm. When she looked up at him he gave her a smile that said don't mind them, to which Yujito gave a small smile too. As they reached Kurai's desk and asked her if his dad was in, to which she replied that he was in a meeting with A, and that he would have wait in the lounge. And just ran into his father's room. "Pops, guess what happened?" And yelled in excitement, eager to tell his father what he did. His team followed in behind him with an irritated Kurai. Raisin and A looked at their youngest son/brother curiously. "What's up, En? What did you do?" Raisin asked his son, and just smiled and motioned to the scroll on his back and the unconscious Mizuki who was on Darui's shoulder. "Alright, so we were on patrol, right? And when the rest of the team decided to take a break and I wanted to go let off some steam." And started to say, not mentioning the part where he and Ko nearly fought each other. "And I sensed a chakra signature trying to get into Kumo. I went to see who the guy was and I found out it was a missing nin from Konoha," he said, motioning toward Mizuki. "I asked him to leave or I would arrest him, and he had the nerve to insult my rap." To which Raisin and A sighed, knowing how prideful he and B were of their rap. It was a surprise to see that the guy wasn't dead. En's mood turned serious. "This guy works for Orochimaru, Pops. He was going to one of his bases." A and Rai tensed up, alarmed. "What? Orochimaru has a base in Kumo?" A roared angrily, to which En nodded. "I'm guessing so, since he was entering Kumo." And rapped. "Anyway, I noticed that he had this scroll on his back and put his hand on the scroll. And you're not going to believe what this is." En's grin seemed to reach new heights, eager to see his family's reaction. "What scroll is it, En?" Raisin asked impatiently, wanting to know why En was grinning like a maniac. Okay, so he was always grinning like that, but he was still curious, and did the same thing he did when he told his team, "Oh, you know, just Konoha's infamous scroll of sealing with their most powerful techniques," and informed them. And laughed at his dad and brother's expressions. Raisin's eyes were even wider than when Yujito and Ko had found out. A's mouth was so open and swore that it was about to touch the ground. "It's the scroll of what?" I yelled in shock, and handed the scroll over to his family with a smirk. "Just read it." When A and Raisin looked over at all the jutsu on the scroll, they looked up at En with pride in their eyes. Raisin got up from his chair and ruffled his son's hair with a proud look in his eyes. "Good job, En. You managed to get some intel of a threat to our country, and gave us multiple high-class jutsu. I'm so proud of you, son," he said proudly. A walked over to his little brother, and ruffled his hair too with a proud smile. "I'm proud of you, little brother," and thought he would burst with happiness on hearing of how his dad and big brother were proud of him. "Thanks, Dad, thanks, big bro," and said. "I think you earned yourself a reward. Tonight we will get some ramen and I'll teach you how to combine Shushin with your lightning armor. I think you're ready for it," Raisin said, proud of his youngest child, and gaped at his father since he had been told that he hadn't been ready for that yet, since his father had said that he could when he was older. Now his father had deemed him ready. This was probably one of the happiest days of his young life. Yujito smiled at the touching family scene before her there, so close with each other, she thought with a pang in her heart, as she thought of her own parents who were now dead. Before she shook the sadness away, this was her family now. With N and B. My kitten already thinking of your future with N? And you already consider him family. So cute. Why don't you show him how much he really means to you? Nibby purred in her head. NIBI. Chapter 8. Training in the Cave. 1 week later at night, Raikage's house, 12 a.m. A figure jumped past the wall that surrounded his house and was hurrying toward the Jinchuuriki cave. Shit, I'm late, he thought, panicky. As he reached a cave next to where the pool lay, which was where they trained and fought there, he tensed suddenly, before rolling quickly to the left, which was good since even in the dark N could see the glint of Yujito's katana gleaming in the scarce light provided from some torches they had gotten to help light up the cave. Hit the place where he had been standing moments before. There were small rays of moonlight coming in from the ceiling from some of the cracks in the cave, adding in on the mystical look of the Jinchuuriki cave. You're late, Yujito said flatly, still swinging the sword in quick jabs and arcs trying to hit her fellow Jinchuuriki, and just kept dodging, though he did feel the katana was past him once, cutting off a piece of his hair. Sorry Yujito-chan, I was training with my dad on combining the Shushin with my lightning armor, and it got late, and I fell asleep. Where is B? He asked before bending backwards when the sword came in on a swipe that could have taken off his head. Little impatient, aren't you? And deadpanned before quickly rolling when she tried to hit him again. Just get your sword out and fight me, Yujito demanded. We haven't been able to come here since before we became Genin, since we either were too tired from training or we had missions. And nodded since he totally agreed. He quickly grabbed one of his swords sheathed on his back. Tonight, do you want to do a Jinchuuriki fight? And asked her. Yujito sidestepped to the left as En's sword slashed at her before quickly trying to kick his arm to disarm him, but her leg was caught by En's other hand and was pushed backwards, losing her balance momentarily. When En saw Yujito lose her balance, he closed in on her using his sword as though it was another piece of his body, showing Yujito why he could use 7 swords at once. Clang! The sound echoed throughout the cave as Yujito's katana and En's sword struck each other, both stepping forward trying to overpower each other. En was slowly winning this, and Yujito quickly moved her sword to the side, making En step forward from when he was using his strength to overpower her. Yujito quickly used this to her advantage, using her speed to help her. En could only go on defense as Yujito skillfully slashed at him, not allowing him go on offensive unless he wanted to get stabbed. Yeah, do you want to tag team against B? Yujito asked, to which En nodded while still dodging the deadly blade. Me and B may do our sword fight sometime too. I need to keep practicing my 7 swords dance since I haven't been able to use it in an actual battle like B. En told her as he skillfully avoided Yujito's deadly blade. I have to admit, it is pretty impressive that you and B can fight with 7 swords on your body. Where did you find the places to put them all? Yujito asked him, and avoided a particularly close slash of the sword. Me and B have a blade located on both our elbow joints, one on our left armpit, on our right side of the neck, one in the stomach, one on our right leg, and one in our mouth. And informed her smugly since he was very proud of his kenjutsu style. Yujito gave him a curious glance. You managed to get swords in all those places and never once thought of using your hands to hold a sword? She asked in amusement, and gave a playful glare at his fellow blonde. Me and B don't want to be original, so why not fight with a sword with no hands? Yujito shook her head in amusement. Only you and B would do something like that. Hey, since when have more or B done anything original? And asked with a grin, and started to go on the offensive. He jumped in the air trying to hit Yujito from above, but his sword was deflected by Yujito's katana. He jumped on a ledge of rock 5 feet high where Yujito followed him trying to get a hit on him. All of a sudden, and tripped over a large chip in the rock, making him fall backwards. On instinct, he tried to grab anything to stop him from falling. In this case, it was Yujito's wrist. Yujito was already starting to tire from the fight, and was caught by surprise and didn't have time to react and fell within. Yujito and En suddenly found their faces an inch from each other with their noses touching. Yujito was lying on top on En with her hands on his chest. En's arm that wasn't holding Yujito's wrist was wrapped around her waist since he had grabbed her there, as they fell on instinct. It also didn't help that they were sweaty from their fight and could feel each through their clothes, which was the case for Yujito since she had her hands on his chest and could feel the muscle there. Both realized what this looked like and both blushed up a storm. As they tried to get up, they froze when they heard chuckling behind them. Well, what do we have here? Are some sparks be coming from Lil 9 and Lil Miss too? I see where this is heading. Ah, yeah, you fool. A familiar voice spoke. Oh no, anyone but him, thought the 2 younger Jinchuuriki as they stood up, still blushing a storm. Big bro, it wasn't what it looked like, I swear. And said, trying to explain the situation. B smirked at his little brother. Oh, I think that was exactly what it looked like. Would you like me to leave this room for yourselves? I can find another one if you'd like. Yujito and En's blush, which had tuned down, returned full force, making them look like blonde tomatoes. Shut up, B. Yujito yelled at the older rapping Jinchuuriki. We were practicing our kenjutsu while we waited for you and N tripped and grabbed me and I fell on him. It's not what it looked like. Whatever you say, Yujito, whatever you say, said the still grinning B. So where were you, big bro? I didn't see you at home for at least a week. And said, trying to change the subject. I went on a C-rank mission with Team B. We were to protect a person from bandits, you see. The guy was such a niche, but the mission went on without a hitch. B said with his usual swag. Yujito's eye twitched at B's rap but decided to not comment since this took his mind off what he walked into. By the way, and Pops told me about your border patrol. Good job with the fight and getting that scroll. B told him and raised his fist, to which N happily fist bumped with. Yeah, and Dad even said I could learn a couple jutsu from it. And I learned this new jutsu called Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it allows us to experience what the clone experiences, so if we had one work on chakra control then we will learn whatever it learns. It's pretty legit. N said. B and Yujito looked at N in surprise. While there is jutsu like that. Do you know what we could do with a jutsu like that? We could totally use this for our training, Yujito said happily, and showed Yujito and B the hand seals. We can't do too much, and then dispel them at once since we would get a massive headache from all the memories, so we can't go overboard. And told them, so we just go a little under the overboard? B asked, to which N nodded happily. Oh yeah, like we are going to underuse it, we just have to get not at 3 extra clones or something, that should be fine. And high-fived his brother. Yujito just shook her head in amusement at the two brothers. Okay, so what do you guys want to do first? Jinchuuriki battle? She asked them. Jinchuuriki battle, the two brothers said at once. Yujito nodded. Okay, let's start with the initial state first, and then gradually go up. To which the others nodded. The trio jumped backwards from each other and slowly started to channel their Ju's chakra. Yujito's sky blue eyes changed to an amber color as her fingernails slowly turned into claws. A ability she got from Nibi is that she could turn her fingernails into long claws that could reach the size of a dagger or longer. It was also very strong since they had held their own against B and N swords on multiple occasions. She hadn't actually used them in an actual battle since she was afraid that if someone found out about them then they could guess that they were training in their Ju's chakra and they weren't ready to tell anyone, at least not yet. She kept her claws at the same length as N or B's since they were just going to use taijutsu. N's eyes turned crimson with a black slit in the middle. His spiky hair turned even spikier and his whisker marks turned darker. Black marking appeared around his eyes. His fingernails turned into claws. B's eyes turned white with a purple tint. His hair got spiky even though they were still in their braids. His muscles seemed to get even bulkier. His fingernails turned into claws. N looked over at Yujito, who nodded, and as one rushed towards B intent on taking him out. Yujito reached him first, aiming for kick in the head, but was batted away by B using his left hand. Flipping in midair, she landed gracefully just as N reached B. And seeing an opening since B's arm was up from batting away, Yujito quickly dashed to the left, aiming for B's left side with a punch. B realized what N was aiming for and tried to bend away but was too slow and was pushed backwards a couple feet from the power of the punch. A good punch, bro, B commented. I may not be the strongest in strength, but I am the fastest and my punches still pack some heat. N said. This was true since the trio of Jinchuuriki had noticed that when they were in their Jinchuuriki forms that each was better in a different type of fighting. Yujito was the most agile of them while N was the fastest of them and B was the strongest of them, and could easily shake off a hard hit. That didn't mean that N or Yujito were weak in strength though, since both could still pack a punch that could break bones if they hit as hard as they could on someone not in a Jinchuuriki state. They guessed it was because of their Ju. With Nibi being a cat, it was obvious that Yujito would be more agile and the Hachibi just screamed muscle, so it was obvious that B would be the strongest in strength and foxes were known to be fast, which is why N was the fastest. Yujito joined up with N and together they charged the eldest Jinchuuriki, with Yujito taking the left and N taking the right. B tried to dodge as best as he could, but N and Yujito got in some hits, causing some major bruises that were immediately healed from the chakra as he was pushed backwards from the force of the hits. 2 against 1? That's not very fun. B rapped. B started to go on offensive. He managed to punch N upwards in the jaw, making him fly up a little in the air. And flipped and landed feet first on B, making the older teen stumble from the added weight. Yujito, seeing her chance, kicked B in the chest while N jumped off of him as B was flung into the wall, causing a large hole to be formed from the power of the kick. N and Yujito grouped back. Did we get him? N panted, trying to catch his breath. His question was answered when a sudden burst of red chakra came from the hole where B had been flung in. In a flash, B was out of the hole in a one-tailed state with the bubbly form of Hachibi surrounding him. When N and Yujito saw this, they immediately called upon more of their tenant's chakra. Blue chakra swirled around Yujito as she went into her one-tailed state, while red chakra bubbled around N as he went in his one-tailed state, and charged at B with an incredible amount of speed, disappearing from where he was by Yujito to in the air next to B, aiming to kick him in the head. However, B was used to N's speed and quickly leaned backwards as N's foot passed by an inch away from his face. Acting quickly, B grabbed N's foot and spun him around his head before throwing at the wall, making a large hole. B sensed danger and immediately sidestepped, which was a smart move since Yujito was about to punch him. B started to try and hit Yujito with a series of punches and kicks, but Yujito was too agile and managed to dodge them all. When Yujito saw an opening in B's style, she immediately tried to punch him with her right hand but was caught off guard. When B caught her wrist, it was bait, Yujito realized with a curse. B smirked and threw Yujito in the same hole and had just climbed out of, sending both of them back into the wall. B appeared in front of the hole where Yujito and N were struggling to get off each other, but stopped when B appeared in front of them, holding up his hand for them to stop. "Alright, let's stop the fight for the night. Let's go and find some jutsu to learn since we still have some time to burn." B rapped. N and Yujito nodded and followed B to the rooms with all the techniques their predecessors had found during their lifetime. "Alright, good job on the fight, you guys are getting better at this. The only reason why I managed to get you, Yujito, was because you took my bait. In a real fight, try to make sure it's not a trick," B told her, to which she nodded. Yujito glanced around the tunnel they were now traveling in with a smile. "I'm glad you guys found this place. It's like our own training field." Yujito's smile turned to a frown. "Next time you find something like this, you better tell me, not wait half a year," she warned them with a glare, to which the two brothers paled considerably. It was true that when they had told Yujito about the Jinchuuriki cave, she had been excited to train with her Juice chakra, but she had gotten pretty angry when she found out that they had withheld this information from her for so long, to which she had beaten the crap out of them. Both of the boys learned the hard way to never piss off the tiger that was Yujito. The trio of Jinchuuriki were glad of the caves. Even though they had been here for over 6 years, there were still some places that they had yet to explore, though most of the things to learn were in the rooms with their number on it. And nodded. "Don't worry, Yujito-chan, we won't." Turning his head to look at his brother, he continued, "Hey bro, when do you think we can go to the island turtle?" And asked. The island turtle was a large turtle that was big enough to be an island. It is considered a stronghold for Kumo, though it was barely used as such. It was filled with dangerous and wild animals. But what people didn't know, except for those three, it was also a place to become perfect Jinchuuriki. There on the island were the Falls of Truth and a shrine for Jinchuuriki. While they knew they weren't ready to face the falls or go in the shrine, they still wanted to go check the island out. The problem was convincing the two boys' father. They were going to ask to go on a training trip, but they didn't know if he would buy it. "I don't know, and I'm probably going to ask Dad to go there for a training trip. But then he would probably ask why I'm taking you too and not my team. While I trust the kids, I don't think we are ready for anyone else to know about our Jinchuuriki training, since if Pops finds out, he will probably kill us for doing something so dangerous without us telling him," B said, which N and Yujito nodded, since they knew that if the Raikage had found out they had been training in their Ji chakra, especially for B since the other hosts had all died trying to control the chakra without his knowledge. Well, let's just say that they were pretty nervous for when he did find out. They weren't looking forward to facing a pissed-off Raikage. The man may be 65, but he's still scared even when he got mad. "I kinda feel bad about not telling him though. We all know that when he and your older brother find out this, they're gonna kill us, you know that, right?" Yujito asked. "And that's the reason why we will tell them after we have full control of our Bju. I'd rather be in full Bju form when they try to use us as a punching bag. Besides, I know it's not cool to lie, but if they find out now, then they would stop us from coming here and train, and then we wouldn't be able to make our dream a reality." And said. They reached the main cave that had 9 tunnels on the left with numbers 1 to 9 above the entrance. The trio went through their designated numbers. N's POV. As N went into his room, he immediately went over to the half side filled with scrolls. The room hadn't changed at all. The only difference were some scrolls placed differently on the walls or on the desk. N had also replaced the wooden chair and put in a comfy chair he had brought in from his home after the original one had broken once he had sat down in it. He hadn't stopped laughing for hours as N tried to get the splinters out of his, but he stopped laughing though when N hit him in the face with the remaining piece of the chair. The only other difference was that N had changed the bed sheets, making it a crimson color. After looking around, he randomly picked a random scroll. He sat down on his comfy chair and opened the scroll. He was surprised to see that it was on chakra flow, and had heard of chakra flow, where you combined your elemental element to an object or weapon. For example, if you infused lightning into a kunai with lightning, not only would it electrocute the person if hit, but it would be sharper and could cut through anything that was not fused with elemental chakra either, unless it was earth or the person had less control. N knew that B had trained in lightning chakra flow with his swords, and decided to try it and read the scroll. After he finished the scroll, he grabbed one of his swords since they were made from a metal that uses elemental nature. To use lightning flow, you must imagine it sparking and constantly moving. No lightning can remain still, you must keep your chakra to be ever shifting like lightning. And thought as he repeated what the scroll said in his head, and started to channel his chakra into the blade, trying to follow the instructions. A few sparks came out of the blade but remained unchanged. God, this is just like the leaf training. And thought, he reflected on what his brother had told him that day and tried again with more concentration. A small yet fragile haze of lightning came out of the sword for a few seconds before fading. It's better than the first, and thought optimistically. B's POV. B was searching for a certain scroll in a section of his bookcase that he had for his Jinchuuriki abilities. Seeing one, he grabbed it before laying on the bed using a lamp on the table as a light. He saw a jutsu that he had yet to learn and started to read. Ink release. Ink mist allows user to make a mist of ink, making it near impossible to see through, best used for making an escape. To use, inhale deeply before using ink to make a mist as you exhale. B mentally went through the hand signs needed for the jutsu before he headed out of his room back to the main cave. He entered the cave and took a tunnel out of the 5 tunnels on his left, which was the second one to the right, and started to following it. After going through multiple tunnels easily thanks to spending 6 years exploring these tunnels, he had arrived at one of his most favorite places to train in the cavern. The room was dark with only few torches scattered throughout the cave, where he lighted them with a fire jutsu. Most of the light came from the side of the wall where a small hole opened up to the sky. It wasn't big enough for anyone to get through or notice, but it was big enough to let the moonlight in. Unlike most of the caves in the cavern, the ground had sand in it. There was a small pool that was actually an underwater tunnel that was large enough for them to have fights on water to help with their chakra control. He headed toward the middle of the cave where the sand remained untouched since the last time they were in here. He quickly went through the hand seals for the jutsu he was about to use and deeply inhaled. Ink release. Ink mist, be said as he exhaled and watched as a small cloud of ink came out. The ink mist was at least 5 feet wide and only went up to his waist. B frowned before going through the same thing again. This time the mist had gotten larger and had gone up to his shoulders. B nodded. It wasn't good for battle yet, but it was getting better. Yujito's POV. Yujito was searching around for a scroll to choose from the bookcase. Her room was much like N and B's, but with the color being dark blue like Nibi's fur, and her bed sheets being purple. She chose a scroll labeled Lightning Jutsu and went to lie down on her bed. Opening the scroll, she read the first jutsu on there. Lightning release. Lightning shot charges lightning to index and middle finger, and release a string of lightning from the 2 fingers. Good for long to mid-range. Can be used for either paralyzing or knocking an enemy unconscious unless charged with more chakra. Yujito decided to try this jutsu since it would be good to know a jutsu used for incapacitating an enemy in case they did a kidnap mission for intel. She jumped off her bed and head out of her tunnel. When she went to the 5 tunnels on the left, she chose the third from the left and started walking. She soon arrived at a medium-sized cave filled with large boulders, though some had either been destroyed or had large holes in them. The Jinchuuriki trio used this area for testing out new destructive jutsu, and used this area for his lightning armor to help create new techniques for it. A large boulder 2 times as tall as Yujito and 10 feet wide had a gaping hole in it 4 feet wide and a foot deep when En had used his lighting armor and used his brother's elbow bolt at full power. Yujito had to sympathize the guy who got hit by that. Yujito went over to a medium-sized boulder and backed up 5 feet. She started to channel lightning chakra to her 2 fingers as she put them together, aiming at the boulder lightning style. Lightning shot and released the concentrated chakra from her fingers and watched as a small bolt of lightning shot out and hit the boulder in a second. She walked up to the boulder and inspected the damage done. There was a 4-inch wide and inch-deep hole in the side of the boulder. Yujito frowned since it was supposed to be a small hole from the concentrated energy, meaning she didn't use enough control. Yujito stepped back and continued to use the jutsu until she was satisfied. After half an hour, she managed to get the jutsu right and decided to step a few feet back to help with her aim. As she was charging up for another lightning shot, Yujito heard a yawn come from the back of her mind. Hey Nibi, I didn't know you were asleep, Yujito thought to her via mental link. Hey kitten, sorry, was just taking a little catnap, Nibi said as she sent a mental image of her stretching in her mindscape. So did anything interesting happen while I was asleep? Nibi asked her. Yujito blushed red. No. Nibi leaned forward in her cage. Something did happen. Come on kitten, give me the details. Nibi asked her. Yujito sighed. There was no way she would tell Nibi what had happened with her and En, but froze and started to curse herself, as she had momentarily forgotten that Nibi could hear her thoughts. Ooh, something happened between you and En. Details kitten, details. Nibi yelled from her mind, eager to know what happened with her container. And then, did he kiss you? Did he pull you into a dark tunnel and ravage you? I need to know, kitten, Nibi begged. Nibi. No, that didn't happen. Stop being such a pervert. Yujito scolded the perverted J in her stomach. As Nibi said those things, she thought back to when she fell on N. Damn it, she just did it again. Ooh, kitten, I'm so proud of you. Did you get a good feel of him? I bet when you felt his muscles you just wanted to ravage him. Nibi purred out. Nibi. What? I'm just saying. Yujito sighed and was about to continue arguing with her perverted demon, but before she could, she felt a large pulse of B's chakra. This was their way of telling each other that it was time to leave. She left the cave with the boulders. She soon reached the main cave and saw that N was already there. Alright guys, I don't want to pretend, but it's getting late and our time in the cave has to come to an end. Be wrapped. Man, we may not be able to come here for a while since Darui-sensei said that we had a mission that takes us out of Kumo tomorrow. N complained. Yeah, and me and Big Bro along with some storm are gonna go to the base that the guy you captured was going to and get rid of it. B said. The next time we are all in Kumo, let's meet back here. Yujito told them as they walked out of the cave toward the waterfall. Good luck on your mission, bro, you better kick that snake's ass. And told B as they jumped out of the waterfall. Me and Big Bro will totally kick that snake's ass, yeah. B said. The three Jinchuuriki continued the rest of the way to their home in comfortable silence. Yujito split off from the two brothers to go to her own house while the two brothers continued on. As they arrived home and went to bed, both were wondering what their next missions would bring. Next day, Raikage Tower. Team 9 were standing in front of the Raikage as he read out their mission. Team 9, I have received an emergency mission from a small country called Wave. The shipping tycoon Gato has been suppressing the people of Wave until they were nothing more than slaves under his rule. There is a bridge being built that connects Wave to the mainland to help the people, but Gato does not want that. The bridge builder Tazuna had hired help from the Leaf, but once they had fought some low-level missing Nin, they left him, saying it was too dangerous for them since he had lied about the mission rank, since he only had enough money to pay for AC rank. Team 9's eyes narrowed at the Leaf Nin just leaving their client alone. Yes, he lied, but given the explanation it was obvious why he did. That ain't right, Pops. How could they leave the guy? And said angrily. The Raikage just nodded his head in agreement to his son's statement. Your mission could turn to B rank or above. I am confident that you Genin can hold your own while Darui takes care of the bigger threats. And you're at least high chunin in strength along with Yujito. And Ko is strong too, while Darui is one of my strongest jounin. Your mission is to protect the bridge builder Tazuna while he builds his bridge and to take out Gato. Not only will this probably give us a treaty with Wave, but it will also show that Kumo is better than Konoha since they ran while we finished the mission. Don't fail. The Raikage said to where the team nodded their heads and replied hi, and looked at his team with a smile. Alright, let's go. And jumped out the window in the side of the room, causing it to shatter, and showered his father in glass. The Raikage sighed at his son's antics while brushing the glass off his head. I got to leave my windows open, he said to himself. He looked back at the remaining Team 9 and gave Darui a scroll. In here is the location of Tazuna. He is currently hiding in a small forest to avoid any more assassins. Now go follow my son before he gets lost. Team 9 nodded and headed out the door to get their other teammate before he heads in the wrong direction. Chapter 9. Off to Wave. Wave Country. After Team 9 had found N, who had started going in the opposite direction of Wave, they had started to tree hop to Wave. They only stopped to eat and sleep since they didn't want to have Tazuna be killed before they got there. They soon arrived at the woods after a couple hours of tree hopping. N activated his sensor and started to decrease the range, which will allow a better view that was closer and could pick up people with no chakra. He soon found a person in the middle of the woods where he informed his team, and they speed off to meet their client. Tazuna was having a bad week. He had left Wave in the dead of night to get to Konoha to buy protection to help his country be freed from the tyranny of Gato. He knew lying was bad, but he was desperate, damn it, and when his guards that consisted of 3 kids and 1 lazy jounin had met resistance, they decided to ditch him in the middle of the woods, saying that it was too dangerous, and that they would send his mission to another nation if they were willing to take it. He felt like giving up. Tazuna froze when he heard a man's voice call out behind him. Are you Tazuna the bridge builder? He turned around and saw a tall dark-skinned man wearing a white vest, a girl with platinum hair and blue cat-like eyes, a brown-haired boy in some sort of red armor, and a muscular blonde boy wearing red shades and had 7 swords sheathed around him. Tazuna swallowed thickly, thinking that they were here to kill him. Why yes, are you here to kill me? To his surprise, the man shook his head. No, we are here to protect you from Gato and to take Gato out. Tazuna felt his spirits rise before he realized something. but I only have enough money to pay against bandits. I can't afford to pay you for anything higher. I'm sure you would know of this, so why are you helping me? The tall blonde boy spoke up. My dad saw reason to why you lied to Konoha about the mission rank, and if I was in your shoes I would have done the same. Kumo ain't like Konoha where those cowards run instead of doing their mission. We fight to the end cause this ain't some sort of game. The boy said with a smile. Tazuna felt something he hadn't felt in a while. When he tried to think of what it was, he then realized it was hope. He quickly bowed to them. Thank you. I promise you will not regret this. How can I ever repay you? The blonde smiled at Tazuna. You can thank us by building that bridge and giving your country hope again. The man motioned toward the blonde. This is Enyatsuki. I'm Darui. The girl is Yujito ni, and the other one is Ko Aobuyoki. Tazuna nodded, making sure to memorize the team members' names. He noticed how En and Yujito seemed to send off a powerful aura, not as powerful as Darui's, but even he, a civilian, could tell that they were pretty strong compared to the pink-haired fangirl Banshee, the creepy pale guy with a weird smile, and the emo brooder from Konoha. Tazuna grinned. All right, let's go. We have a bridge to build, and grinned and pumped his fist in the air with the rock sign. All right, let's go kick Gato's ass. He made to leave but was stopped by his sensei. Darui looked at Tazuna. Since you have already been delayed waiting for us, and will carry you until we hit the ocean, and nodded and motioned for Tazuna to get on his back. This makes me feel old. Tazuna complained, much to the amusement of En and his team. Soon enough the Team 9 was off heading toward the ocean. It took the team a day to reach the shore, with the only conversation was between En and Tazuna, where he was trying to convince Tazuna that rapping was cool and that he should try it, much to the man's annoyance. As they arrived they saw a man in a small boat. The man recognized Tazuna and quickly waved him over. The team got in the boat, and the man pushed ashore with his paddle before paddling in the direction of wave. The team sat there for what seemed like hours, trying to see through the heavy mist that seemed to cling to them. All of a sudden a large half-finished bridge emerged from the mist, towering over the people in the boat, and gave a low whistle. Damn, that is one big-ass bridge, he said to himself. They soon arrived at the shore. Everyone but the boatman got out. This is as far as I go. Good luck, Tazuna, the boatman said before turning on his motor and disappearing in the mist. The team headed off on the path toward Tazuna's house. After walking for a couple minutes and tensed, and suddenly threw a kunai in the bush, making his team tense up waiting for an attack. The bushes rattled and out popped a white rabbit. Tazuna relaxed before turning angrily to En. What the hell? I thought someone was attacking us, and it was just a bunny. He was about to continue, but he noticed how the ninja had not relaxed at all and seemed to be even tenser. All four were thinking a white rabbit, but it's summer, they only turn white during winter, which means that is was kept indoors. Kawarmi! En faintly heard a whistling sound and tackled Tazuna while yelling, get down. A large zanbato impaled the ground where Tazuna had stood. All of a sudden a man appeared on the sword. The man was shirtless and only had a belt on his chest, wearing baggy pants with the striped pattern and camo wrist warmers extending to the elbows, along with two being on his legs. Darui instantly recognized the man from the bingo book, Zabuza Momochi, a member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, a rank missing nin for planning a coup d'état against the Mizukage. Zabuza chuckled. Well, it's nice to be recognized, but let's cut the chit-chat. I'm on a mission and I need to kill the bridge builder. Zabuza made a one-hand seal while lifting up his massive sword with the other, as a heavy mist came from nowhere. Darui cursed, not being able to see through the mist. Guys, protect Tazuna. A dark laugh came from all directions. There are 8 vital spots on the body: heart, kidneys, jugular, liver, spine, subclavian artery, lungs, and the larynx. Which one shall I choose? Zabuza taunted while directing his ki at the genin and Tazuna. He was surprised to see that the two blondes weren't affected by his ki while the other one was only looking around quickly. He was surprised since he assumed that the 3 genin would be shaking in their boots. He smirked. He always did like a challenge. All of a sudden Zabuza appeared by Tazuna in an attempt to cut the old man in half with his cleaver sword. He looked like he was about to succeed when, clang! He looked up in surprise to see the blonde boy wearing shades with 2 swords in his hands blocking the sword from cutting the man in half. Impressive, he must have amazing strength to be able to stop my attack. This is going to be fun, Zabuza thought with a smirk. And still holding the 2 swords in his hands, charged his right foot with his crimson lightning, and side-kicked Zabuza in the face at high speeds thanks to his lightning. He was surprised to see Zabuza turn into a puddle of water. Water clone, he thought. 2 Zabuzas appeared out of the mist heading toward En. He got in a kenjutsu stance, deciding to only use 2 of his 7 swords. En ran toward the clones as one clone swung his cleaver sword, aiming for his waist, intent on cutting him in half. And still running, moved to his knees and bended backwards and watched as the blade came an inch above his eyes. Still moving forward, he slashed at the clone that tried to attack him, and cut off his leg only for him to turn into water too, and quickly rolled to the right in time as the other clone's sword struck the place where had been moments before. He jumped to his feet, and swung his two swords in an arc aiming for the head. The clone's sword struck his and both struggled to overpower the other. Zabuza was slowly moving his sword forward thanks to his age. He was stronger than En, and seeing this narrowed his eyes and started to channel lightning chakra to his two swords. Crimson lightning came out of his swords and started to cut through the large cleaver. The clone, realizing what was going on, tried to get his sword out but was too slow, and the two swords cut through the large sword and struck the clone's chest, causing it to turn into a small puddle of water. En glanced back toward his team and saw Yujito and Ko each fighting their own Zabuza clones. Since neither seemed to need his help, he hurried to where the sounds of metal striking against metal were coming from. He arrived near a lake and saw his sensei and Zabuza fighting on the shore, each with their respective cleaver swords. En appeared several feet away from Zabuza, just far enough for him to not notice him thanks to his attention being directed at Darui, but close enough for him to perform his jutsu. Crimson lightning surged through his swords and he struck the water with his two swords while directing the lightning chakra towards Zabuza while saying lightning release, shock current. Zabuza heard the sound of electrified water and glanced behind him, and his eyes widened in shock as he saw the red lightning coming toward him at fast speeds. He jumped away quickly, but the lightning managed to hit his left foot. He grunted in pain as the lightning stung at his leg. He shrugged the pain off. He wouldn't have been a good ninja if pain stopped him from completing his mission, even if it hurt like a bitch. He looked over at En, who was smirking that his jutsu still managed to hit him. "You're good, kid. Let's see how good." And he charged toward En. Cleaver aimed for his head, and ducked, and tried to cut Zabuza in the waist with his right sword. Keyword tried. Zabuza caught En's wrist before he could hit him. Zabuza smirked, seeing that he had the kid trapped before he saw a glint of light in the corner of his eye. He quickly let go of En and moved backwards as Darui's sword slashed through the air where he had been moments before. Darui smirked at him. "You shouldn't have forgotten there was another opponent, TCH. I recognize you now. You are Darui of the Black Lightning, a student of the Third Raikage, and was given the secrets of his Black Lightning. You have quite a large bounty on your head. I'll be happy to collect that," Zabuza stated. Zabuza sidestepped quickly as En's lightning-covered sword slashed where he had been moments before. En grinned at Zabuza. "My dad was always a good teacher." Zabuza's no eyebrows rose up in shock. "The Third Raikage is your father?" En smirked and nodded. Crimson lightning started to cover En. It wasn't much, only around 15%, which was the amount he fought Mizuki with. In a blur of speed, En shot forward, intent on taking down the man in front of him. Zabuza hadn't expected this and barely had time to bring his sword up to stop En's swords from stabbing him in the chest. "That's the lightning release armor used by the Third Raikage and his oldest son, eh? I'll be damned, I never knew that the third had another son," Zabuza thought in shock. En noticed Darui going through a set of seals and jumped back. Zabuza turned to Darui just in time to see him finishing his seals. "Lightning release. Wave of inspiration," Darui yelled out while channeling large amounts of lightning from his mouth. The large amount of lightning surged forward towards Zabuza. Before he could even react, he was hit by the large amount of lightning and was thrown backwards toward the shore. En and Darui headed toward the place Zabuza had crashed to see him shakily get up from the tree with lightning sparking around his body. En noticed Yujito and Ko running toward them, already having finished their own clones. Just as En and Darui had arrived by Zabuza, Saban needles hit Zabuza in the neck, making him collapse dead. "Thank you for weakening him. I have been hunting him for quite a while." A monotone voice came from the trees as a single person appeared by Zabuza. The person was dressed in black and wore a Kiri Hunter-Nin mask. He picked up Zabuza and put him on his shoulder. He turned toward the Kumo ninja before bowing. "Thank you. It would have been difficult to fight him by myself." He left in a shushin, and glanced at his sensei. "Yo sensei, why did we just let the guy take the body?" Darui looked at his student before shrugging. "It would have taken us time to get rid of it. Now let's go get Tazuna home." The group walked over to where Tazuna was hiding behind a rock. When he heard footsteps, he looked over the rock and saw his guards. "Is it over?" he asked fearfully, and rolled his eyes though you couldn't see them behind his shades. "No, we decided to take a 5-minute break. We'll get back to the fight in a couple minutes," he said sarcastically. "All right, team, let's head out." Darui ordered his team. The rest of the trip was uneventful. They stuck towards the woods, deciding to not go to town to make sure Gato didn't find out that Tazuna was still alive and back in town. They soon reached a medium-sized house that was 2 stories high. The house seemed to be white, but the wood had started to decay around the edges, and the paint had been peeled until only small patches of white could be seen, and even then the weather had turned it into a grayish color. A young woman came out the door. "Father, you're okay," she cried before hugging her father, which he happily returned. She then noticed Team 9 standing behind Tazuna. Father, are these the ninja from Konoha? She asked him. Tazuna scoffed. No, when I hired a team from Konoha and we were attacked by some low-ranked ninja, they decided it was too dangerous for them and left me on the road, saying that they'll send my mission request to the other countries if anyone would take a high-class mission with only enough for a C rank. The woman looked at her father in shock. How could they leave you like that? But then who are these guys? She asked. Tazuna gestured to Team 9. This is Darui with his team. The blonde with shades and the swords is Enyatsuki and gave the peace sign. Yujito smiled at her before bowing, and Ko Abuyoki bowed in greeting. Tazuna smiled at his daughter. They are from Kumogakure. The Raikage saw why I had to lie about the mission ranking and sent them here to help us. He continued to smile. And these guys are the real deal, not like those 3 genin from Konoha with the lazy sensei. They just fought a really powerful guy a half hour ago, and they got skill. The woman smiled before remembering something. Oh, forgive me, I haven't introduced myself. I am Tsunami. She introduced herself. Nice to meet you, and said happily. The team went inside where they each got a room to themselves. They went to the kitchen table where Ko decided to say what everyone else was thinking. Sensei, I think Zabuza is still alive. Chapter 10. Attacking the base. Tazuna looked at the Kumo ninja in shock. What do you mean he is alive? That masked guy killed him, he said in shock. Ko shook his head. He used saban needles. My clan makes up most of Kumo's hunter nin, and few use those as a weapon to kill. It's used more to stun an enemy, or in this case friend. Yujito spoke up. And another thing is that the ninja took the body with him. It's standard procedure to immediately get rid of the body once the target is dead. And nodded at her words. Yeah, that guy was a big OL fake. Man, it seems we ain't gonna get a break, he sighed as he leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed. I knew this mission wasn't going to be dull, Darui said. Tazuna looked around nervously. So that means that he can appear at any time? He asked worriedly. Darui shook his head. Zabuza is probably suffering from large chakra exhaustion from when he fought Mien. Not to mention he was hit point blank by my lightning release, wave of inspiration, and his leg was hit by En's lightning release, shock current. We have a week tops. Until then we will train while protecting you from any other assassins, Darui told him. Tazuna nodded. Okay, the bridge should be finished pretty fast, my guess by next week. Darui continued on. Until then we shall train, and when you go to the bridge we will send clones or one of us so that you are still protected while we can still get some training done. Now let's head up to bed. We got a big week ahead of us. But before we go I want to ask you something. En. How do you know chakra flow? That's something that Jounin learn. It's uncommon to see a genin use it, he asked curiously. Be taught it to me. I saw him use it once with his swords and I asked him what it was and he showed me the instructions on how to do it, and I winged it from there. En lied quickly, not wanting Darui to find out how he really learned it. Darui bought the lie and just gave a nod. Alright, we should have a guard watch. And you can start after 4 hours. Wake me up. En nodded and headed outside while the rest of his team went to bed. He jumped up on the roof and lied down on the flat roof looking at the stars while using his sensor ability to look for any would-be assassins. As he looked at the stars he thought of his older brothers and their mission to Orochimaru's base. He wasn't worried about them since A is an S-rank ninja and could fight Orochimaru head-on if he is even there, and B was an elite jounin, and they had Storm as backup. I wonder how it went? En thought as he gazed at the stars. 2 days ago, near Orochimaru's base, I glanced around at his team before he looked down on a map of the base that Hawk had drawn from using his Hawk summons. It was nighttime and the only light was from the full moon shining down on the ninja, making their armor and swords glint. Alright, everyone knows the plan? He asked the Storm Nin and his brother, who all nodded their heads. Yeah, big bro. Now let's get this show on the road. Oh yeah. B rapped, aside at his brother's antics. B. This is not the time for your rap, he said angrily, not raising his voice in case there were ninja hidden close by. I looked at his comrades. Okay, Sparrow and Hawk will go on the west side of the base and assassinate any guards, while Mole and Badger will use their earth jutsu to create a hole in the east side of the base. Raccoon, Bear, Lynx, and Horse will create a distraction on the north side. I will go with you guys once the people come out. Weasel and Bee will go through the hole, accompanied by Mole and Badger, and get rid of any of the guards left in the base. Bee and Weasel will then split off and go to the lowest level and find any of the children that the snake bastard experimented on. Find any survivors and get them out of there. If any of you spot Orochimaru, tell me immediately via radio, since I'm the only one who can fight him toe to toe. I told them as he motioned for Bee to follow him to talk to him in private. Why is the demon brat here again? Hawk murmured to Sparrow, not intent on having his leader hear him. I didn't, but someone else did. Hawk felt a blade on the back of his neck. He warily turned around to see Weasel behind him holding his tanto now pointed at his heart. Do not insult Bisama, Hawk Weasel said emotionlessly, though you could hear a hint of anger in his voice. Why would you give that demon any amount of respect, Weasel? Hawk said angrily. For many reasons. 1. He is the son of our Raikage. 2. He is a very skilled shinobi and I am impressed with his strength. And 3. He saved your life, your friends' lives, and your family's lives 13 years ago, when the Hachibi was released and was sealed inside him. 1. So I believe those are very good reasons for us to give Bisama respect. Weasel told him with anger still evident in his tone. Him and his little brother are demons and the girl is a demon whore. They are. He was about to continue but stopped when he felt a monstrous amount of ki directed at him. Turning around with a pang of fear, he saw behind him with fury burning in his eyes with his fists clenching together. I suggest you listen to Weasel Hawk, because if you ever insult my little brothers or Yujito in front of me, I will end you. A roar, not caring if anyone could hear him. Lightning started to spark around him, showing he was about to use his lightning armor to kill the one who insulted his little brothers and Yujito, whom he saw as a little sister. Thankfully for Hawk, rescue came in for him before he met a very, very painful death from A in the form of B. Whoa, chill big bro, I know what he said wasn't right, but we can't just kill the guy right before the big fight. B said, trying to calm his older brother down. B, he just called you, and Yujito demons, and I will never have people call that if it's within my power. As your big brother, I have to protect my little brothers, and Yujito is like a little sister to me. I retorted angrily, still glaring at the quivering Hawk. I know bro, just forget it. B said calmly. I took several deep breaths before glancing around the room where all the storm ninja had taken several steps back in fear of the pissed off and not wanting to get involved. Does anyone else want to say something about my little brothers or Yujito? I demanded. The storm ninja quickly shook their heads. I snorted good. He walked off toward the base before stopping and calling over his shoulder, move out. To which the storm ninja quickly followed, going to their designated areas, with B headed off toward his position with Weasel following behind him, while Mole and Badger were ahead of them, already heading toward the base. Thanks Weasel, for sticking up to us. B murmured to the masked storm ninja. I was just doing what everyone else should be doing in the village. Respecting you, and Sama, and Yujito-sama as the heroes you are, B-sama. Weasel said. Hey, you know you're the only one to call us that. It's kinda weird to be called with that much respect from someone. It's relieving to know that there are people who don't see us as monsters. B replied. You do deserve the respect, B-sama. You saved your people's lives when the Hachibi was released all those years ago. The fact that you have managed to keep the beast sealed away for over 13 years while the previous hosts only kept the Hachibi contained for a few years tops shows your willpower and strength, something that I greatly respect. Weasel said. B-sama. How I like the ring to that. B said, smiling. The rest of the trip was silent. Both decided to not speak since they were in enemy territory. They stopped on a mountain ridge as they gazed down on the base. The base was dirt brown and only a story high, though they knew there were more levels down below. B and Weasel saw Mole and Badger at the edge of the forest near the east wall. Alright, time to rock, B thought as he waited for the signal. With Sparrow and Hawk, the two bird-masked ninja head toward the west side of the base. Wow, I have never seen A-sama so pissed before. I seriously thought he was going to kill you, Hawk. If B hadn't intervened you would have been killed, very painfully too. Sparrow commented to his fellow storm ninja. Hawk decided to not answer, and just focused on the path before him. The two storm waited for the signal when they saw a bolt of lightning flash across the sky. Now, the two thought. West side guards. Two guards were patrolling the west side of the base, though neither were straining themselves to look for any threats. After all, they didn't think Kumo would ever find them. Were they in for a surprise? Man, this is so boring. It's not like Kumo is ever going to find us. One of the guards complained. Yeah, Kumo is so dumb if they can't find this base. I doubt they will ever find this place, don't you think, Hugo? The other guard replied with a smirk. The smirk disappeared when he didn't receive an answer. He turned around in time to see Hugo on the ground bleeding from a slash in his throat. He didn't have time to yell when he felt a knife slice his throat, and he died and fell to the ground with a small thud. You shouldn't underestimate Kumo, Sparrow said to the corpse. And though you couldn't see it because of his mask, a smirk was on his face as he looked at the bodies of the men who had dared invade his country. Sparrow looked over to Hawk and nodded, and they both headed toward the base, intent on killing the people who invaded their home and kidnapped their people. North side. Bear, Raccoon, Lynx and Horse saw the flash of lightning summoned by their leader and charged forward. Horse and Lynx quickly went through a set of hand signs. Fire style. Firestorm, Horse said as he unleashed a large wall of burning flames at the doors of the base. Wind style. Whirling winds, Lynx said as he held his palms out, and a large amount of wind chakra was released from his hands. The two jutsu hit each other as they reached the door. It turned into a monstrous ball of white inferno that wrecked through the entire wall and through the base. The 4 ninja hurried through the destroyed walls, ignoring the burned corpses of those caught in the inferno. All of a sudden 5 enemy ninja appeared out of nowhere and attacked the storm ninjas. The storm nin took out their swords and defended against the attackers. While the enemy had the advantage of surprise, the storm they were badly outmatched. The storm were the strongest of Kumo, and these were barely high Genin and Chunin ninja. It was a piece of cake. Raced into the hole after his team. He was surrounded in his lightning armor. He quickly barreled straight through a group of enemy shinobi before any could react, much less get away. Though he wasn't using his full power and speed in his armor, he was still fast enough to only be a blur. An enemy ninja tried to form a jutsu to attack the storm nin. Keyword tried. A appeared out of nowhere with his arm at his throat lariat. A yelled as he crushed a man's throat with his electrically charged arm. A zoomed around the room, attacking more ninja until one by one they all fell. A glanced around the destroyed room. Orochimaru hasn't appeared, is he not here? Whatever, I got a mission to do. We gotta show that snake bastard you don't mess with Kumogakure. With B, Weasel, Mole, and Badger. B saw the flash of lightning summoned by his brother. Go, he said. Badger and Mole flashed through the same hand seals and placed their hands on the wall of the base. Earth style. Earthen decay. The dirt wall started to dissolve until there was only a large hole and dirt covering the floor. The 4 ninja jumped into the hole, where they found themselves in a dark hallway where the only light was the moon from outside and the torches on the walls. Mole and Badger went to the left of the hallway to take care of the rest of the ninja in that section, while B and Weasel took the right. Weasel had his tanto out, and B had 2 of his 7 swords since he couldn't use all 7 in such an enclosed place. The 2 ninja met few resistance, and those they did met were easily dealt with. They soon reached the lowest floor and found a tunnel that turned into 2. B looked at Weasel. I'll take left, you take right. Weasel nodded his head and headed off into the right tunnel. B ran through the tunnel. All of a sudden a ninja appeared in front of him. The ninja went through hand seals and yelled out fire style. Fireball jutsu. B kept on running. The ball of fire hit him and the ninja smirked. However, that smirk disappeared when he saw B run out of the fire unharmed. How? The ninja yelled before he noticed that B's skin was grayish and looked like hide. He didn't have time to ponder on what it was before B struck him with his sword, making him fall to the ground dead. B deactivated his ox hide and continued running until he reached a pair of metal doors. He opened the doors and stopped, shocked at what he saw. Lab equipment was everywhere along with blood, so much blood splattered on the walls and floor. A pair of scientists looking through a file looked up and saw with surprise at the unexpected ninja. Hey, this place is off limits. This is for the people to experiment on the test subjects, one of them said before he noticed the hide on the teen's forehead. He paled. Kumo has found us, he thought frantically. B ground his teeth in anger. These men had performed terrible experiments on people and children. They made him sick. In a flash he was between the 2 scientists. A glint of his swords through the dark was the only warning as the 2 scientists' bodies split in half. B glanced around at the equipment around him and summoned 10 shadow clones, ordering them to seal anything on the experiments and the notes. B looked around to find any survivors but found none. The clones gave him all the info they could find before he left. B ran out of the room and down the hall. A blur appeared by him as he ran through the hallway. He didn't need to look to see it was Weasel. Any survivors? B asked him. Weasel shook his head. They were all dead. Some weren't even all the way together. I did get some info though on the things Orochimaru's done, Weasel said. B clenched his teeth in anger when he heard what happened to the people who were here. Orochimaru, you bastard, B thought angrily. B and Weasel head up toward the upper levels. The place was silent. Looks like Asama and his team took out all the enemies, Weasel stated, to which B nodded. The 2 ninjas soon arrived outside of the base, where they headed toward the group of Storm who were huddled by A. There you 2 are. I was getting worried, A said as he spotted his brother and Weasel. Sorry, Asama. B-sama and I had to fight down to the labs and had to get any info we could find, Weasel said. A glanced at his brother. Were there any survivors? He asked B. B shook his head. No bro, they were all dead, he said solemnly. A clenched his fists before looking around at his team. None of them had died and only Horse had any injuries, which was just a deep cut on his arm that was being healed by Mole. Let's head back to Kumo, we're done here, he said. As the team of Storm Ninja left, A lit the fuse that was connected to exploding tags that they had placed inside the base. I watched as the base blew up, forever hiding what monstrous things had happened here. I heard his brother approach him. We'll get that snake, bro, he ain't gonna get away with this, B said, to which A nodded, and the two brothers followed their team back home. Back in Kumo, Raikage's office, the Raikage listened as A gave them their report. His eyes gleamed with anger when he heard of what happened to the people who were experimented on. I see. I want to have 2 storm teams deployed to patrol that area with one of our fastest messenger birds to see if Orochimaru comes to the base, he said. The Raikage dismissed the storm ninja as the report ended. Step forward, Dad, we can't let this fly. We gotta make that snake and hurt him until he wants to cry. Told his father. For once didn't try to hit his brother for his rap and even agreed with him for this one, and probably only time. The Raikage looked at his second son before nodding his head in agreement. I agree, we need to find Orochimaru, and show him why you don't mess with Kumogakure. I'll send out squads of thunder, too, to track down the bastard, he said. B&A nodded. Now there is another reason why I had you stay, the old Kage said to his eldest and second eldest son. I think it's time we tell N of his origins. B&A looked at their dad in surprise. When? A asked his father. When he gets back from his mission to Wave, the old Kage told him. Silence reigned in the room. A and the Raikage both knew that they were afraid of telling N. They didn't want to see any betrayal in his eyes or that he would stop seeing them as family. They both knew that no matter what happened they would always see N as their son/brother. They were family and he was their son and little brother. B wasn't worried this was Lil 9. There was no way that they would stop being family. Even if they weren't related by blood they were brothers and that would never change for him, and he knew it would be the same for N. Don't worry, Lil 9 won't stop seeing us as family. We are a family. We can't be the awesome Yatsuki clan without him, B said with his usual smile. A and the Raikage nodded with smiles of their own. No matter what happened the 4 would always be family. He was 5 when the Hachibi was sealed in him. Hunter Nin or trackers.